Hello and welcome to Short Scary Stories. As always, there are 3 scary stories in this video. Please subscribe so you'll never miss a beat. On to the stories. My girlfriend and I love camping, or at least we did. One day, my girlfriend and I were on a trip through California when we found a relatively empty campsite to stay in. We liked to camp on these trips because it would help us save money. We set up camp, made dinner, and went to bed. In the middle of the night, we were woken by somebody whistling outside of our tent to the tune of When the Saints Come Marching In. I laid in utter silence, hoping the singing person would just go away. My girlfriend cuddled up closer to me, scared herself. We heard nothing for a few seconds, but then the whistling turned into chanting. When you sleep here, you disrespect me, and when you disrespect me, you disrespect the U.S. Marines. I knew at this point we needed to get out of there. I was trembling, and so was my girlfriend. I peered outside but did not see anyone, so I went ahead and motioned for my girlfriend to follow me. I did not want any part of this, so without picking up any of our belongings, we quietly climbed out of our tent into my truck, which was located only a few feet away. We decided to spend the night at a local motel instead. The next morning we drove back to the campsite to retrieve the belongings that we had left behind. As we were leaving, we paused at a site adjacent to ours, where a family had been staying. I asked the family if they had heard anything, and they told me they had. They said the singing had continued for another 2 to 3 hours after they left, and it was one of the creepiest things that they'd ever experienced. When I was 18, some of my friends and I took a trip to the Appalachian National Forest near Tallahassee, Florida. Our goal was to get away from people and just hang out. We decided to get as far away from civilization as possible, so we just drove far into the woods and swamps. We set up camp and had a few drinks. A friend and I were curious about where exactly we were, so we decided to explore the surrounding forest. It was getting dark, but we figured we still had an hour or so before it would be pitch black. As we were walking, we found a trail and started following it, but the farther we went, the more apparent it became that someone else had used the trail recently. Eventually, we came to the campsite of an older man who was living out of his van. His clothes were strung up, coolers scattered around, and his dog sprawled beside the van. Me and my friend turned back, hoping we hadn't been seen, but the man caught sight of us and called us over. He asked us friendly questions and offered up some places that we should check out at the park. About 10 minutes after talking, we returned to our own campsite. The man was a little bit strange, but seemed perfectly harmless. Fast forward 2 months, my friend calls me and tells me to turn on the television. There on the screen was the man that we had met in the woods that night, on trial for 4 murders. My parents got divorced about 3 years ago, and every summer since I visited my dad. One of our traditions was taking trips into the mountains by my dad's house. We enjoyed getting out and enjoying nature alone. We enjoyed the trips for the most part until the last one we went on. We were hiking down a steep slope and we saw an old rifle sticking from a tree. It looked like the tree had grown around the barrel many years before. My dad thought it was strange, but we wanted to take a closer look. The gun looked very old and the wooden stock was all rotted away. All that was left was a rusty barrel. We decided to look around the area to see if we could find anything else. About 15 feet away, we found a small cave. Inside, we found a handful of aged personal belongings that made it seem as though the cave had once been inhabited. There were 3 cans of unopened, rusty food and a rusted cast iron pot. There was also an old saddle and bridle and a deteriorated wool blanket. We unrolled the blanket, and here's where things got a little bit sketchy. Inside, we found a shirt with holes and what looked to be bloodstains, all crumpled up. My dad estimated that the gun had been from the 1870s, meaning whoever had been shot and most likely killed in these woods likely died around the same time. This story makes me think, what other secrets do the woods have? Thank you for listening. If you like the stories, please subscribe and like this video so I can continue to make others. Have a good night.